Speaking of death, like, hmm. It's like this thing, like there's a lot of situations where you just don't actually know what death to take. I suppose is how you would say it. Like for example, I had to work for someone, and this person treated me horribly, just awfully. I've never had anyone be so disrespectful to me in my whole life. And so when you see that, how do you interpret that, right? Is it a personality issue? Does he have something going on with his life? And it turned out that it was the latter. That he had something going on with his life. One of his relatives was really sick. And on the surface, it seems like that's a good enough reason, right? It's a good enough reason for someone to act negatively because they're not feeling well. But on the other hand, I'm personally more inclined to believe. Let me just deal with this guy. I'm more inclined to believe that these difficulties actually end up just revealing character flaws. It's really when things are going good, everyone is the same, right? Every happy family is the same. But when things are going bad, your response that's when your response differentiates you from everyone else. And so my point is, I could have just stopped at analyzing this as, well, he has bad emotions. He has really negative emotions, and the negativity is spilling over. But the truth is that when a person does that, when he's suffering, and it just means he's never considered another person suffering, right? Like it's ego. Well, this is purely ego-driven shit. Is what's going on. Like there's two sides to this. You have to be compassionate, right? There's no way you can't be compassionate when your relatives is dying and they're sick. I mean, that's terrible to go through. But on the other hand, it says a lot. It says a lot about a person when they go through shit, and the shit just makes them terrible. Just makes them a toxic piece of shit. I think it speaks volumes. That's really when you get a really good reading on someone. Same thing with someone who becomes overly successful, gets a lot of money, right? Same thing. That was not like the money didn't make them act in a new way. It's just that they didn't have the ability to act in a new way. So when the negativity argument that we're talking about, the negativity is giving them an excuse to do what they're doing. And when they get rich, we have a culture where if you're rich, you're right, by any means necessary. So same thing. It's an excuse. It's an excuse to act out on your worst nature. That's really what I believe happened. And the thing is, I don't dislike. Like I said, you have to have compassion. I don't dislike him for it. I don't hate him for it. But just because you don't hate someone or dislike someone, you can judge them. Because judging people is kind of like judging anything else. How do you know the good from the bad without judging? So you should judge people. You should judge people when it's appropriate, even if you don't actually, tell them that you're judging them. You should still, you should show them compassion, but inside of your headspace, you should be making notes for yourself, because I feel like that's really it's really the important part about these things that you encounter, these situations. What do you take away from them? Because if I said, right, if all I did was just look at it on face value, I would have gotten nothing out of it, right? I would have just made an excuse for him. And then I would have thought that what he's doing is acceptable. I can do that too. So, rant over. Point is that there's always like an issue of depth. You think too much about something, there's always the risk you overthink it, but then when you don't think about it, no, there's the risk that you don't learn anything from it, you know? Yeah, I was just thinking, like, just back to the whole thing, just to continue this thing. I mean, I got nothing else on my mind right now. To continue this thing, you're told not to judge people, and I think that's, you're told not to judge people, you're told you have to be happy. Neither of those things are true. Your goal is not to be happy, your goal is to be content with yourself, and to be content with yourself, you're not going to be happy at some point, because you basically have to get burnt to get stronger. It's kind of like, when you work your muscles out, right? It's going to hurt. When you start working out, it's going to hurt the most, because that's when you're least prepared for it. That's when you're least physically conditioned. So it's the same thing with getting better as a person. Is if you start at a low point, it's going to be painful. It's going to be painful to realize how low you are when you start. Just understanding your standing is going to be tough. And I feel like there's a few things that people should just quit doing, like we should all quit doing, like all at the same time, to not tempt each other. It's pretty crazy, right? To as a community stop. But first thing I would say is we need to stop smiling at each other, because smiling randomly at each other, as if you're content, as if you're happy. If you're happy, that's fine. But I mean, how often are you actually happy? Like maybe 2% of the time, right? At most. So the other 98% of the time, I would say, don't smile. The reason is because it gives an image of like normality, that no one is vulnerable. Like when someone looks at that, they see a world where everyone has everything in order, everyone is happy except for them. Same thing with Facebook, right? You only upload the best parts of what's going on with you. And again, that gives you a impression that, the viewer, so everyone gets this impression from everyone else, because you see someone and, they're projecting this happiness about themselves, about their life, and what do you want to do? You want to convince them that you're not vulnerable either. You're also very, very happy about what's going on in your life. There's nothing wrong with you. That's what you want to, because you wish to be part of a community, and the community is a community of people who are completely happy, don't have any problems, don't need to improve themselves, are not judgmental, so if they won't try to do anything to make you unhappy, so they won't try to perturb you. So you have a community that you have to be happy, and you have to be sure not to make anyone else unhappy. That's the community. So we're part of this community, and it's no good. It's no good because it's a miserable way to be, honestly. It's miserable, and I fucking hate when people just randomly smile at me. And when they try to recruit me into their whole fucking cult. I mean, how else would you call it? It is a cult. They try to recruit me into their cult by saying I have to do this or that, I need to stop looking so glum. It's honestly the fact that I'm being honest, like the fact that I am being honest with you with my facial emotions is a sign of respect. It means that I don't feel like I need to trick you like you're some kind of child. Like, well, children I understand, like you have to You have to smile to them. You have to project, project goodwill, because they're still very vulnerable, right? They can't really deal with the idea of someone more powerful than them suffering, right? Because kids do suffer a lot. It's not like we always remember our childhood as this nice time when everything was good. But I mean, think about how many times you got into conflicts. You get into conflicts with people more in childhood than any other time in life. You come into physical conflict unless you're like MMA or something. This is the time in your life when you're most bullied and most physically abused by your peers. So they feel vulnerable, and seeing an adult's world crumbling, it's no good. So with kids, that's fine. You should fake it. Of other adults, though, for the same reason that you should spare kids your emotions, you shouldn't spare other adults your emotions. They're ready. That's it. They're not kids anymore. They should have been hardened enough to deal with what you got going on. And you don't even have to say it. It can just be on your face. And the thing is, if it's on your face, it will make people feel good, because it'll say, well, we're all human, right? We're all human. We have our problems, and none of us is an invulnerable Superman. There's difficulties. It's life. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, holy crap. So by that extension, my theory is that the reason there's so many movements, leftist movements, I think, to a large part, originate with the issue that people, the reason people like try to defend downtrodden groups, that's not what I think. It's just the way they would word it is, they wish to defend these groups that they think are less privileged than they are, because they don't want to hide their vulnerability anymore. They want to be open about their vulnerability, but they haven't, because we're recruited into this cult where we can never express what's going on the inside. We have to find other ways to look vulnerable, and the way a lot of people end up projecting it is that they're confused about some aspect of themselves. For example, they were born wrong. There's dissonance. They were born attracted to the wrong sex. They were born as the wrong sex. Stuff of that nature. They were born as the wrong race is a common theme now. I mean, it's not as simple as what I'm saying, but it's part of it, right? It's an aspect of that whole thing. So basically, we have a culture that's subversive towards us. It forces us to seek acceptance in absolutely unnatural ways, when the solution the solution is you need to be less narcissistic. You need to be more you need to be deeper. You need to be more reflective about yourself. And the truth is, people just need to support each other in doing that by not being in this happy cult and just being what they are. Because really, the reason a lot of people end up in these weird subcultures is they think that they're the reason that they can't achieve happiness is because the way they are, they are not fit for this world. They're not. Their being is alien to this world. The reason they cannot have happiness is because they need to go through drastic changes, and that's the only way they'll be able to achieve it. So they do that. And the statistics shows, especially for transsexual people, they end up killing themselves just as often, anyways, when they realize that that doesn't work. Well, what they think needed to change, after it changed, nothing changed for them. The physical aspects changed. Their group of the group of people they know, community they're in, that all changed. But deep inside, they know they've made a mistake. That's not how you. That is not how you recover from this. Really, it's kind of a feeling that makes you, that it contributes to loneliness. It isolates you. You're the only one that's unhappy. Everyone is happy. Get your stuff together. Like, what's your problem? Why aren't you happy? So they just follow some of the media tropes to, the media shows, the media. So the way normality is defined by the media. Let me just jump topics here, because I feel like I've kind of drilled that topic enough. The way the media defines normality is, before I open this door, let me just get my thoughts together. The way they define normality is by what they restrict, by what is an axiom that you cannot question, right? If you can question it, it's not normal. So, for example, the new thing you can question is, the dominant ethnic group, white people. You can question, if they're worth anything at all. If as a community in the United States, they are, do they even deserve to live? Is the latest topic. Is should they be mixed out? And would it be better if the United States just had no white people at all? So so obviously you can't criticize other ethnic groups, right? So that's the norm. That's the cultural norm, is that those people are morally superior. Those people who have been historically underprivileged, they're better because they're because of their history. Regardless of what you've experienced in your life, they're better. Same thing with the nuclear family versus these new 68 genders, or whatever the hell, however there are nowadays. So you can't question how many genders there are, even if that other person doesn't exactly know how many there are. You can't question that premise. There's no questioning that. Same thing that you can't. So one of the problems with homosexuality nowadays is no one really knows if it's genetic or not, right? Recently there was a machine learning code published, which can extremely reliably, for males, if you give it if you give it 5 images of a man, it can determine whether or not they're homosexual, like 95% certainty. So obviously, if a machine can spot a pattern, so can we, right? We just have to all we have to do is we have to find some kind of we have to find some kind of analysis of what the code did to determine the pattern, and then we can just learn that pattern as well. So we can just teach a machine to see patterns, pick that pattern, and then so this is easier said than done, but it can be done. So all we have to do is figure out what the machine did, and then we can do it. And what does that suggest? That suggests it's genetic, right? So if it's genetic, there's a problem, right? If it's genetic, then it has to be desirable by society, right? It has to be desirable by society because we're getting to a point in our meta evolution where we can choose which aspects a kid has, right? And obviously people who are right-minded, who are on the, a lot of conservatives would just prefer to choose not to have children who are gay. So what they would do is they would figure out what the gene is, and then they would just be biased against that. And it sounds kind of extreme now, but that's actually gonna happen once we have the technology for it. Aspect 2 is, if it's not genetic, if it's a choice, then again, if we decide it's not a good thing to be gay, we can just say, well, we have psychiatrists, psychologists who, until, I don't know, 40 years ago, thought this was a thing that can be dealt with therapy. So we do therapy. So basically it's a catch-22. There's no way out of it. There's no way out of it, which is why it has to be a positive social norm. The left, so it goes back to the idea that the left wants downtrodden subjects, so that the inner sadness that these people feel can basically be projected onto someone else. Which means that this whole program, which can teach us how to spot certain things about people and prove to us that it's probably genetic, or biologists can probably find a gene for it. It's just controversial right now, which is why they don't want to, but chances are, now that we know, they can. But the point is that once that happens, and before it happens, and the reason they don't want it to happen is that it'll take away this group the group that suffers. It's the same deal with any kind of black person who says that black people need to take their fate into their own hands, and they're not victims. They're, the history happened, and you have to move forward, and you have to get better, and you have to improve, and the community has to get better. You think these are all positive messages, but the left doesn't like them. It doesn't like them because they're empowering messages. Empowering messages empower people. Once people are empowered, they can't be victims, and then they're useless for the left. That's all there is to it. The left only wants victims, and I'm not far right or anything like that. Despite what I said, I'm actually a foreigner, so I don't really have like a horse in this race, to be honest with you. I have a preference because I feel like the left is very dishonest, and they're creating this cult of misery, in truth, by making a cult of happiness. But I don't have a major horse in this race. So that's pretty much what I think about all that stuff. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna apologize. It is what it is. I just feel that way, and I don't think I'm gonna do the puzzle, to be honest. I don't want to get pissed. Like I said, I play this for catharsis, and doing dumbass puzzles is just not part of. It's just not part of my catharsis. It ain't part of it. Yeah, this is the puzzle. Fuck this. I'm pretty sure next floor I'm gonna get better stuff anyways. Just whatever. I'm seriously just taking the easiest route possible. I don't want any trouble here. I'd rather just chill out, have a good time, take in the views, which there's some. They're not very. There's not a lot of variety to them. It's mostly just all a dungeon where Himmler's experiments happened, I assume, which I'm guessing is why this whole conversation has gotten so racial and divisive. But anyways, the main thing is, when you hear this kind of stuff, I feel like like this is coming from someone who's not. I'm socially confrontational, but I'm not. I don't get into people's I only get into people's faces about stuff I care about, which is just a few things, mostly related to my profession or my personal relationships. I'm not like a political activist. So, for that reason especially, people shouldn't be pissed at me. But if they are, I don't really, whatever. It's the internet. It's kind of why on the internet, anonymity is nice. You know, like I have a Facebook, and I have a real Facebook, and I use it like just to chat full with like 2 or 3 people, and I feel like I would never write anything on Facebook. Like I take the fucking idea that, you know, I have to. I think I actually missed a key here. I take the idea of there it is. The idea that people who employ you will look through your history and like figure out that you've been up to some shit. Like if I posted this whole rant under my own name, I would be uncomfortable, because the truth is that while you cannot go to prison for your views, you can go to social prison for your views. If you say some shit that's outside of the modernly accepted narrative, and everything is about narrative nowadays. Everything. I mean, it's always has been. It's, you know, our favorite activity as human beings is to tell stories, and try to. Some of these stories we just want to actually make into reality, so we want to live them out. Want to live our fantasies out. So, if I did something against the commonly accepted narrative, I wouldn't want to post it on Facebook. Fuck that. I don't want to lose my job just because, you know, just because I don't have the same opinion as everyone else. So that's kind of why I think the internet should just get rid of Facebook and Twitter and Twitter or whatever the fuck it's called. Just get rid of all that garbage, or just leave it so that only celebrities can use it. Like, I don't know, like Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg has to like show up at their door and like actually check them out and be like, yeah, it's a celebrity, and they have to, like, they can, you know, hang out for a few days. I don't think anyone would actually want to hang out with Mark Zuckerberg. So you can just come over and be like all awkward and say hi, and then, you know, then they're approved, and that's how people get approved. It's like, so we can have celebrities, and then everyone else is just an anon, and you can just post whatever the fuck you want to any of these people. Besides, like, you know, the obvious limits, like no child porn, no regular porn is probably fine, honestly. As long as the community as a whole agrees with that, is pretty good. Like, you know, don't like fucking do any kind of like anima shit or any of that stuff. Like even if it technically falls under acceptable, I feel like we should ban that kind of stuff. But the point is, celebrities get to go there, and it's not like a privilege. We're all anonymous. Obviously, 90% of us will just shit on them. So they get to use social media, and we get to shit on them. That's it. That's the whole deal. Oh, and also, we should have like some kind of social media police, where if any of these celebrities does anything fucking weird, um, it gets posted on their site, on their page. Like if I don't even know many celebrities nowadays, so you know if back in the day Britney Spears got arrested, coked up, it gets posted on her Facebook. Like it gets posted on her Facebook, and her the photograph the police take of her when they take her in, it's also on there, and you can comment on it, and you can insult her. You can upload memes of her, like all of that. All of that's good. That's good. All of that's good. But the thing is, you can't have your own Facebook. You just can't. You can have an anonymous puppet account of like, you know, Deathbringer945. You can do that. But first of all, don't post any real pics of yourself. And if you do, they have to be ironic. Basically, limit it to like two real pictures a person. That's it. There's no story stuff, nothing like that. If you go over two, okay, first of all, you can't delete them for like a month, so you can't get around the limit. Like you can change your two pictures once a month. If you try to get around this, you get banned. You're not limited from posting pictures, but if you do, you just get banned by the program, immediately banned. And you never come back. Your IP is recorded. You get blacklisted off of all social media by your internet service provider. All that good stuff. You're done. You're not wanted in this town. When you move, when you move to a new apartment, they have to like report to the local police who you are, and then they report you to the new ISP that you'll get banned off the social media again. You just get banned, and you just get banned every time. And if you try to use a VPN, you like if you're caught using a VPN, first time you have to pay $1,000. Second time it's a felony. You go to prison for 30 days because that's ridiculous. Like you need to know better than to get around the system. Everyone else is following the rules. Why can't you follow the rules? You think you're better than everyone else? Fuck off. You're not. You're just you are just everyone else. You're just You're a fucking goblin who's trying to be a goon is how I would say it. So just be aware of that. Like once the social basically once social media gets out of the hands of thoughts and various sluts, that's how it's gonna work. Like once this is not a activity of narcissism anymore, that's the new rule set. Is you have to make a fake name. It has to sound like it was made in the 90s, or it has to have some kind of like cultural reference. Except for Rick and Morty, like if you like Rick and Morty, you're banned immediately off of new Facebook. Pedo Rick is just in this new world. There is no place for Rick and Morty fans. They will just all have to. We'll all just have to move on to like Sweden or wherever else their nihilistic cultural Marxist shit is accepted. So they're gone. Goodbye. Don't write. Don't come back. Pass go. I hope you enjoy getting butt fucked by a bunch of ISIS fighters. Like that's it. That's it. We're done. So that's what's gonna happen to them. Those people, they're donezo. Yeah, I mean that's basically how social media is gonna work in about 5 years. So women will just go back to texting each other. Like there's not going to be any kind of. Most women are going to get banned from social media because we know they're not going to be able to follow the 2-picture rule. So it's going to be like 99% male, which you know. So it's going to be 50-50 for celebrities, male, female, and like I guess 49, like 2% margin for whatever they wish to identify as. Point is, 99% of social media is going to be male. Not because there's any kind of like, I mean, in effect, there's going to be discrimination because of the way it's set up, right? But in actuality, there will be no discrimination. Like any woman can make an account, but you know, it'll be the average lifetime of female account will probably be about two weeks. 2 weeks. I think that's about how long. So after that, women are limited to text messaging. That's, you know, there's not going to be a female version of so this is all going to get centralized. There's not going to be like a female version or, you know, like a, you know, Facebook for blacks, Facebook for what, like none of that's going to happen. Everyone, you know, everyone uses the same thing. There's one website, there's one set of rules. You know, don't try to like fucking get around it by, you know, using like a real sounding name like Aaron Paul or something. Like if you use a real sounding name and your name isn't actually Aaron Paul, honestly, I think the first time you do that should be a felony. So if you do that, you don't even get a warning. It's just immediately fuck off, and that's it. That's, you know, in that case you only get, so you have to be creative, man. Either you have to be creative or just, you know, make a nonsense name. But either way, that's how it's gonna work in the future. So that was level 1. I feel like we covered a lot of ground here, a lot of philosophical ground. And next time we will, you know, we'll dive into some more heavy shit because what? Oh, I don't double click. Wait, is this not over yet? Okay, I thought it was going up. Wait a second, what the fuck is this? Hold on. I'm not gonna quit yet then. This is weird. Is this level 2? Is this in fact level 2? Okay, it does have the loop. The staircase just completely blew my mind. I totally did not expect that staircase to be there. I was expecting a door, and yeah. Well, anyways, we'll do this. I'm a little bit out of steam for now. I'll have to like grab myself a coffee and sit by the window and contemplate my existence for part 2. So I hope you enjoyed this. I didn't. I enjoyed this, which actually is all that matters. So I will make more videos. If you want to listen, tune in. If you don't, I don't care. But it would be cool if you did. And I don't care if you subscribe. I don't have a Patreon. Do like it because it's nice for my ego if you like it. So that's it. See ya.